Ah, one of my favorites. Okay, I can only take so much of that. My goodness, I think I just broke every copyright infringement on YouTube right there by playing that video. Let's talk today, if we just shift over to the whiteboard part. Today we want to take a look at some basic concepts of what you learned about a few days ago, which was quantitative research. Quantitative research, just to remind you, are you looking for the Zoom?
No, it's exposure.
Okay. Quantitative research was the sort of the research aspect of psychology that believed that the numbers don't lie. It's basically a mathematical approach through surveys and questionnaires and yes and no answers, right? This sort of mathematical approach to determine what the truth is about how people feel about a certain thing, right? At least psychologically. And so we want to get into, I think the other day in the video you watched, we talked about percentages, right? If we give a survey and 75 out of 100 people answer such and such on some survey, then a quantitative psychologist would say, well, 75% of the people believe this, right? So there's some other math that we need to be comfortable with these terms as well. So in our notes, let's write basic concepts of quantitative research. That'll be our big heading. And these other sort of mathematical terms that we need to be familiar with, you're probably going to know them, right? I mean, at this point, I think I've got 10th, 11th, and 12th graders in my psych course, and you've probably run into at least 3 or 4 of these mathematical terms in the past. The first one is the mean. So a quantitative researcher might talk about the mean, which is a big fancy word for the average. So if we come on over here to our baby shark video that we just listened to, right, what a quantitative researcher would say is, well, here's a pain chart. When you listen to the baby shark video at the beginning of the class, how much discomfort did you feel, right? And we could poll everyone in the class, and we would get answers like, we might have one person say it was utterly horrible. One person would say it was unimaginably unspeakable how much pain they felt watching the baby shark video. This idiot over here says, I love it, right? And then we've got some people, in between. And of course, if we're talking about an average, then a quantitative researcher, right, a quantitative psychologist would say, well, what's the mean? What is the average? And of course, how we arrive at that, just like in math class, it's going to be 10 plus 8 plus 5 plus 4 plus 4 plus 3 plus 0. And we would add all that up and divide by the number of, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We would add all that up and divide by 7. Let's see if we can't do that real quick. I'm not sure, Garrett, do you have a phone with a calculator?
Yeah.
All right, you can be my quantitative researcher here and figure this mean. Let's go 10 plus 8 is 18. I can do this part in my head. Plus 5 is 23. Plus another 8 is 31, plus 3 is 34, plus 0. So it's 34 divided by, and so back over here on my average, I had 34 total points on the pain meter, and divided by 7 participants. And so the average amount of pain experienced by the baby shark video would be?
4.9 rounding to that.
Somewhere around 4.9. Okay, which seems like sort of when you look at 4.9, we're sort of in this distressed level. And that actually might be like a quantitative research psychologist or somebody that believed in those types of research methods would say the average person finds the baby shark video very distressing. And you can, hey, you know what? Like that might actually be an accurate statement. Okay, and that's how they would have arrived at that, and then they have some sort of empirical research that shows that that statement is in fact factual. So that is the mean. Let's move on to another little mathematical term. There's the bell, but that's not going to affect you because you're home. It is going to affect
I
Garrett,
have a study hall.
but he's got a study hall, and it doesn't affect me because I don't give a crap. I just keep going. The next mathematical term we want to be familiar with is the median. Right, so this is just another way that a quantitative researcher would sort of qualify the empirical findings of their experiment or of their research. They would say the median might be the middle value. So if I come back over here and forget about the average part that I circled, we're looking for the middle value. Okay, and we had 2 4s, and so of my 7 people, the middle value would be at the 3.5 person. And so I got 1, 2, 3.5 people. So the middle value would land here at 4, which is again distressing. So the median is the middle value. And once again, my quantitative research is sort of using logical, mathematical thinking and analysis. We would say that the Baby Shark video, even by its median, is in fact distressing. So the mean showed that it was distressing to very distressing. The median shows that it is distressing. And so now a sort of a researcher that's using this type of empirical mathematical data is starting to draw a more solid conclusion that the Baby Shark video is in fact distressing. The third mathematical concept that we want to be familiar with is the mode. Mode is a big fancy word for frequency, right? This is how frequently an answer occurs. Right, this is the most frequent or the highest frequency. This is my really bad up arrow for highest. Right, so we're talking about a highly frequent type answer. And if I come over here again, we would find that the most frequent answer, although it's a very small sample size of only 7 people, the most frequent answer was 4, which again is distressing. And so now I have 3 mathematical, sort of empirical thought process, logical, mathematically proved answers. Each of these answers shows me that the Baby Shark video may in fact be distressing. Our final mathematical concept that we want to be familiar with is standard deviation. Now this is probably the one that you're not familiar with from math class. It's more of an advanced mathematical concept that you really study in, like if we had a course in our school like statistics, we'd probably talk more about how to mathematically calculate the standard deviation of a set of numbers. Okay, standard deviation, we're going to define the standard deviation. I think we actually would probably be better off, rather than just defining it, let's try and understand it conceptually by looking at the word itself, like sort of analyzing the root word and the base word. So if I look at standard deviation, standard means like, regular, run-of-the-mill, and deviation is how much change there is, right, between data points. So this is basically telling us how spread out the answers are. Compared to the average. Right? How spread out are the answers, and then sort of compare it to the average and see how close the answers are to the average. So if I come over here, if this is making sense again, we'll try and kind of show this. So here we had an answer of like, this person really liked the Baby Shark video, and the average was 4.9. And so this is 4.9 from the average. And on the other side, I'm coming back. Let's see, one person thought it was unspeakably horrible. And so they're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.1 from the average. And I'm not going to get into the technicalities. Again, this is not a statistics class. I'm not going to worry about how to compare, right, necessarily, or how to calculate the standard deviation. What we want to be able to say is that these answers, while they span this huge gamut of 10 points, right, the actual deviation away from the average is pretty tight. 4.9 and 5.1 is pretty close together. So the standard deviation kind of zeroes in on that average as well. Whereas if I redid this, let's say somebody did not answer, right, something way out on the extremes, the standard deviation would get like even tighter because the spread between the numbers would not be as high, if that makes any sense, right? So when we talk about deviation, that's sort of like how far away from normal the answers get spread. Those are the mathematical principles we need to be concerned with. That's it for today's lesson. Pretty straightforward. Again, a lot of it's probably easy because from math class, you already know what an average is. You probably knew how to find middle value median. I used to love these lessons in math because it was like the easiest test ever, right? You know what I'm talking about, Garrett? When you take these tests when you're in 6th or 7th grade and you, like, what's the mode? That's an easy one, right? You can't screw it up. So that's the type of math involved with research. And we'll go from there. Thanks. See you next class. That was a really terrible explanation of standard